founder of the Bruce-Fein and Associates, the Lynchfield Group, author of Constitutional Peril, The Life and Death Struggle for a Constitution and Democracy, and weekly columnist for the Washington Times. Mr. Fein graduated with honors from Harvard Law School in '72, clerked for the prestigious federal court, served as special assistant to the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legal Counsel and Assistant Attorney General for Antitrust, Assistant Director for the Office of Legal Policy, Associate Deputy Attorney General, General Counsel of the Federal Communications Commission, Counsel of the Joint Congressional Committee on Covert Arms Sales to Iran, Visiting Fellow for the Constitutional Studies of the Heritage Foundation, Adjunct Scholar for the American Enterprise Institute, Guest Lecturer at the Brookings Institution. Mr. Fein specializes in constitutional and international law, is a frequent witness and advisor to Congress, and is a regular guest on national TV and radio. And we appreciate Mr. Fein joining us today. Ron Paul said, quote, Bruce Fein is one of the most important legal minds in our time. So a congressional level constitutional law scholar. Going over this, we've got a constellation of issues to cover. But, sir, looking at 3 months ago, Obama following the UN directive, saying for the prestige of the UN, he didn't need Congress. Congress servile, comes to them last week and says, here's secret arrest, killing of American citizens, total power, we make you Caesar. And how did the emperor respond?
Well, he responded by disdaining the idea that he would even accept congressional crowning of powers that he had already stolen when he had proclaimed that he may unilaterally use the military anywhere he wants in the name of regional stability, the credibility of the UN Security Council, an overflow of refugees, humanitarian causes, indeed anything that he thought was disturbing on the planet, which was the most egregious usurpation of legislative power in the history of the United States. And he does that without blushing, without recognizing that he now has become the King George III, which was the object of our revulsion and repudiation in 1776. And it's truly astonishing what your former viewer or participant had said, that our founding fathers are being scorned. They're being sneered at. This is basically the counter-revolution, if you will, the Napoleon, the 18th of Brumaire for the United States of America. And indeed, it's true. We have lost the Republic on the installment plan. It's not something that happened overnight. It's been an ever-increasing encroachment of executive authority and military supremacy since the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848. And now we've got a political culture that is passive, that is defeat, that accepts vassalage in the name of making us risk-free. And it's quite something that would be shocking to the Founding Fathers, is all I can say.
Ron Paul last week said this is the final nail if this goes through. And Obama says, I don't even need that power. I'll do whatever I want. I've got the UN. I mean, is this not, Bruce, you said the greatest power grab, the most unconstitutional action in our history. And I have to agree with you. I mean, on its face, it's a total statement. Break down what's happened, what is now unfolding, and why you use words like that to describe it.
Well, think of this hypothetical. Suppose the President of the United States, whoever it is, can be a Republican or Democrat, Obama or Bush or someone else, this evening goes on national television and he says, I've got secret intelligence that shows that unless I suspend the Constitution, declare martial law, and impose the military as supreme over the civilian courts, we will suffer another 9/11. And therefore, I will try to restore your liberties as soon as possible, but right now, I've got to be king. If the president did that, I think our culture would accept it. I think there would be no cry for impeachment and removal from office, and no outcry that this is a usurpation and total capitulation to fear and to dictatorship. This would be something that the American people would shock. They're waiting for Caligula to get to be the president. Obama is not yet Caligula, but as soon as one arrives, we have now set the precedent and the political culture that will indulge a dictator.
Now, Bruce, your cell phone was breaking up right there during that key point. Please repeat the last 60 seconds of what you were saying.
What I'm saying is that the Congress of the United States The American people have cultivated, have accepted a political culture that will accept a dictatorship the next time we have a Caligula in the president as opposed to Obama. That is, in the name of being made safe and risk-free, they will accept vassalage and whatever the president ordains is needed for their safety, they will accept. And that is the final, if you will, representative death knell to the republic when the people are no longer willing to fight for their liberties. It was said by John Quincy Adams, one of our former presidents, that the glory of a republic is liberty. The glory of an empire is domination and dominion. And I think we have now jumped into the empire rather than the Republican phase of our evolution.
Now, Bruce, when you say Obama is no Caligula, clearly the office has taken on endless wars, torture, secret arrests, warrantless wiretapping, quite Caligulan type attributes. But it is this puppet-financed president, this office that now has these powers, and the Republican and Democratic parties that are always wanting to heap more of these powers onto them. And we see the hyping of the threat of terror and you know, turning it into a fetish of jingoisms, where it's a new religion to be the land of the cowards, the home of the slaves. And so we're already there. I mean, there could be an event any day. And I think the general public is starting to wake up to a certain extent, but only to the fact that there's a problem. They have no idea just how bad it is. And a lot of people think, well, tyranny just means our government will go kill some brown people. But with that tyranny, you have the waivers for insiders to not have to get insurance, but your company does. You have the $4,000 fines for trimming your crepe myrtle tree. You have to get an environmental assessment for a fireworks display. I mean, we see the dam breaking and tyranny at every level just pouring in. Your comments on that?
Well, I think what you've stated is that the precedents, the intellectual theories of a complete dictatorship that we typically associate with, say, Stalin or Mao in China are there. It's just that, and I'm not saying that in an individualized way, all the particular horrors that you've identified, torture, detentions without trial, indefinitely putting American citizens on assassination lists without any judicial checks, military commissions that combine judge, jury, and prosecutor in lieu of civilian courts. They're all there, but right now the victims are largely in isolated communities. You know, they're the Muslims, they're the underprivileged who largely dominate the all-volunteer force who are sent abroad to give that last full measure of devotion so a political minion or a president can avoid saying, I lost the war. You know, totally giving their life up for virtually nothing. All those are there. It just isn't as widespread as you would expect that we associate with the horrors of a full dictatorship. But I say it's the earmark of a mature people to recognize when the precedents have been set and to draw the line there before we've fallen off the entire cliff. But the path to the cliff, it has been laid, as you said there. It's just a matter of time unless we retreat before we fall over.
Can you comment on the Supreme Court really breaking down the Fourth Amendment 2 weeks ago? The Indiana Supreme Court saying, quote, officers can come in your house without warrants for any reason or no reason at all. That's a quote by the Chief Justice. New Mexico Supreme Court just ruled cops at traffic stops can take guns from law-abiding drivers for no reason. I mean, right now there seems to be a coming out of the closet. They built the tyranny, you know, over the hill, but now they're rolling this juggernaut directly at us. Your comments on that, and why is there such a orgy now of hiking their leg on us, demonstrating the tyranny? What is precipitating that?
Well, it's all part of this seamless philosophy, if you will, that better safe in a vassal than be free and have the tiniest amount of risk. And let me just sort of put as a background here to these observations, the extension of the Patriot Act, the 3 provisions that are largely completely shown to be useless over 10 years in preventing any act of international terrorism, but all of them deviate from the fundamental Fourth Amendment principle that you don't disturb someone's privacy until there's probable cause to believe complicity in crime. And that has just been thrown out the window.
And they're now admittedly thousands of times per state a year using the Patriot Act and non-terror related.
Oh, yeah. Most of the Patriot Act authorities are going after drugs or organized crime or things that have nothing to do with international terrorism, or deportation, immigration crimes. But to go back to where we began as a country, it was in 1761 that James Otis was denouncing British writs of assistance. They were general warrants that enabled all the petty officers of the British to rummage through people's homes and businesses searching for contraband, etc. And the king at that time said, well, if you're innocent, then why do you care whether we come into your bedroom, And, if you have nothing to hide, let us be Big Brother and surveil every nook and cranny of your existence. And founding fathers said, well, we are born with unalienable rights, and one of those is liberty, and you do not have a right to encroach on our liberty unless you shoulder the burden of believing we're involved in crime. We don't need to justify our liberty. It's inherent of breathing and respiring as a human being. And that was the spark that led to the revolution, according to John Adams. So the Fourth Amendment, this idea of the right to be left alone, was not a marginal element of the revolution. Indeed, it was every bit as central as no taxation without representation. And the general idea was that the threshold of the government into your privacy was only authorized when there was probable cause to believe you or evidence was indicated of a crime.
And that brings us now to the TSA. FBI can't stick their hands down your pants without a warrant. What are the feds doing now on the streets, school proms, if you haven't heard, running wild, first outside the pants, now in the pants of Miss America in Dallas? Are they not openly trying to set the precedent and break our will?
Well, yes, they're trying to get us accustomed to the Big Brother state, to read George Orwell's 1984, that if there's it's a variation of what Dick Cheney called the 1% doctrine. It's even worse, it's about the 1,000,000th percent. That is, if there's a millionth of percent that something is true, you treat it as an absolute certainty like the force of gravity and proceed apace. And you could think that if any ordinary person lived his life with a 1% theory, you'd never get out of bed. If you treated everything as absolutely true, that was 1% or less likely to have happened, you'd be frozen and paralyzed with fear.
Yeah, you could have a car wreck. Your children could be killed, and you've got a thousands of times better chance of dying from that than from terror, but now we've got to give up all of our rights because of terror. Very well said. What about in New York State, and they've introduced the bill, that all of the hotel cleaner people have to wear panic buttons because all men might be rapists because Dominique Strauss-Kahn might have grabbed a woman's rear end. I mean, this idea that government's going to keep you safe with a panopticon of surveillance, who keeps us safe from them?
Yeah, exactly right. Who's going to guard the guard, And I do not trust the... And always remember this. The government can always do more mischief than any particular individual can. That's why if you choose between the two dangers, you accept the danger of the individual, because the government authority and ability to destroy your life is many-fold more than any individual. And that doesn't say that there's not going to be tragedies. There are. That's what life in some sense is about. It's inescapable. But
would you rather face the danger of the mob or somebody in the street or a big organized government? Look what governments have done last century, killed hundreds of millions. Looking at Ron Paul's speech, the last nail in the coffin, and Ron Paul almost breaking down saying, this is just so over the top. Why would Congress in a servile way run to Obama and say, we want to make you king?
Because Congress, given its supine, cowardly nature, it rejoices in escaping responsibility for anything. That's why you get line item vetoes. Give all the power to the president, and then you can't accuse us of doing anything wrong because we didn't decide anything except the potted plants that will adorn, our offices and our committee hearings. And that's where we've come to. It's a phenomenon of the Founding Fathers, as genius as they were. They didn't quite comprehend that one branch could be so effete that would readily yield in glee and clap at the surrender of their powers. But that is what is going on. Your audience would be stunned to know that when the Bush administration went to Congress, unlike Obama, and did get authorization for the use of military force in Afghanistan after 9/11, and did get authorization through delegation to fight the war in Iraq, the members of Congress were outraged that they were asked to vote. They said, hey, don't make us vote on this. That's bad. You just do it on your own. If it turns out bad, we can criticize you. So that's where we've come to. And until the American people vote out of office, all these ciphers there who do not want to do their homework and discharge their responsibility, it's going to persist. But ultimately, unless the political culture changes at the grassroots and the American people say, I'm not voting for a member of Congress, who isn't going to take account of these major decisions.
Tell you what, Bruce, stay there. Bruce Fein's our guest. Final segment coming up.